Alrighty, so despite the fact that my voice is a little bit shot coming into today, the show must go on. I have to do a moving forward series. In fact, I actually did a moving forward series episode about LAFC, but for some reason, the file that I basically recorded got corrupted, so this is pretty much take two in terms of looking at the last moving forward series episode I'm doing in the 2022 season, and that of course is me looking at the defending MLS Cup champion LAFC, and I'm pretty sure LAFC fans has been waiting for me to talk about their team and kind of look at how they were able to finally did something that they've been looking to do for the first 5 seasons, which is getting that holy grail and getting the MLS Cup win. They finished with a 21-4-9 record and finished with 67 points. They scored 66 goals, which was second behind the Philadelphia Union for the most goals scored this season, while they allowed 38 goals this season and have a goal differential of plus 28. I believe that's also second best compared to the Philadelphia Union. But one thing that they were at least able to beat the Philadelphia Union to is the supporter shield. So not only the fact that they of course won MLS Cup this season, but they also become the first team to win MLS Cup and also win the supporter shield. And as I mentioned, they beat the Union on the wins tiebreaker in terms of the supporter shield and finished first in the Western Conference. And I know this, of course, will dig into the discussion of whether or not if the supporter shield is indeed cursed in MLS, because, you know, the people that say that it's cursed is mainly because this is just kind of an outlier, just like what we saw with the TFC team that won both the supporter shield and MLS Cup winner back in 2017. But then there are also some that are basically saying, well, you know, this has now happened in 2 of the last 6 seasons, so it's really kind of an outlier if it has happened 2 times out of the last 6 years. I mean, obviously that discussion is going to continue, and I'm not really going to continue in that discussion because I don't want to get too far dragged into a discussion that we can have another day. But yeah, it is definitely something that, you know, kind of is a thing that we haven't seen, at least in the past couple of years, which is a team able to win the supporter shield and went on to go all the way to win MLS Cup. Now, in terms of road to MLS Cup, obviously winning the supporter shield and being first in the Western Conference means that they earn a bye in the first round. But they got a big test already in the first game of the playoffs. They have to play against their intercity rival, and just like what they did back in 2019, beating them in that El Tráfico, they were able to do it again this time, although it was a little bit closer. This time it was a 3-2 win, and that, you know, they of course got a late winning goal to be able to move on into the next round in a game that it looked like for sure that we were going to head into extra time, and there was bonus 30 minutes of soccer of El Tráfico in the playoffs. Now, in the conference final against Austin FC, that was probably one, if not the most dominant playoff performance I've seen a team is able to do. And I've said before how that was probably the best game that LAFC have ever played in their franchise history, because they were by far the better team in that game against Austin. Like they absolutely throttled Austin throughout that game. And don't let the 3-0 score line fool you. The fact that, you know, they could have had chances to maybe make it 4-5 or even 6-0 in that game if Raj Stuver didn't make some big save in that one. But other than that, what a big victory that is to finally reach to the place that they've been wanted to do for the past couple of years, which is MLS Cup. And that MLS Cup, unlike how in the last episode I talked about the Philadelphia Union and how their fans probably don't want to remember what happened in perhaps the greatest MLS Cup game that has ever been played, I'm pretty sure LAFC fans will be rejoicing this moment for a very long time, and they should be. They came out on the right end of that crazy MLS Cup, able to win 3-0 in a PK shootout, and John McCarthy is definitely going to live up to one of the most notable unsung hero we have ever seen in MLS Cup history. Now, in terms of the top goal scorer this season, we got Chicharito scoring 16 goals to lead the team, followed by Carlos Vela with 12 goals. They've got Jose Cifuentes with 7 goals, Mahala Opoku with 7 goals, and Ryan Hollinshead rounds out the top 5 with 6 goals. Top assist leader, you got Carlos Vela, unsurprisingly leads the team on the assist chart with 11, followed by Jose Cifuentes, Diego Palacio with 7 assists, and then you got Calvin Acosta and Chicharito rounds up the top 5 with 5 assists. So, 5 things that led to them winning MLS Cup. So how did they were able to finally reach the ultimate price of MLS, which is winning the trophy? Well, first of all, this is probably the most talented starting 11 that we've seen in MLS this season. And I know Union fans are going to be kind of mad about it because I kind of said the same thing yesterday. But, I mean, I would say between them and the Union, and this is why that MLS Cup is so spectacular, because I truly believe that this is really one of those MLS Cup where we truly did see two of the best team on paper face off against each other. I mean, that's not always kind of the case when we see an MLS Cup. You maybe see a team that just got hot into the playoffs and or got hot heading into the playoffs and go on a good run. No, both of these squad have been really good throughout the season, and the starting 11 that they have pretty much proves it. I mean, when you look at this LAFC starting 11, I mean, I don't even need to mention too much about that attack. I mean, you know that attack is absolutely lethal. But on the midfield too, you know, Jose Cifuentes, probably the best deep line playmaker in the league, and a guy that is not surprising to be linked with a lot of teams in Europe. And then, of course, you got Ilya Sanchez really turning the clock back to the Ilya that we saw during his time with Sporting KC. And then when you look at the back line too, I mean, the back line is also so rock solid. I mean, the Jesus Murillo and Eddie Segura center back partnership is good. On the right side, you got Ryan Hollinshead, a guy that didn't look like he was going to get a lot of minutes, was come in and definitely steady the ship. And then, of course, on the other end, Diego Palacio, another guy that is very good and one of the best fullbacks in the league, and one of the best attacking fullbacks in the league, that is. And add all to that, you can understand why this team was absolutely rock solid. And I even mentioned some of the guys that they bought in the summer transfer window, guys like Gareth Bale, Giorgio Chiellini, Dennis Bawanga, and all those players that kind of contribute in this run too. I mean, that just shows you how this team was already deep and already good before they add more gasoline and more talent onto this team to get to a point where, you know, I would say that this team might be arguably better than what we've seen in that 2019 LAFC team. And that's crazy to say, because what we saw in that 2019 LAFC team, you know, the likes of Rossi and Vela as the dynamic duo, that was an incredible team. But I think compared to that team, compared to this one I feel like it's more complete. Whereas the team that won the Supporters Shield and at that time scored the most point ever in regular season did it because of the fact that their attack was probably the best attack we have ever seen in league history. Now, the second thing that, of course, led them to winning MLS Cup is the depth guys and subs really stepped in the goal-scoring department. And this was a big case in the first half of the season where, you know, for this team, I feel like for a majority part of the first half of the season, they were a second-half team. And there's nothing wrong to be a second-half team. In fact, you'd rather be a second-half team compared to being a first-half team, because we have seen before where just because you could be a good first-half team, yeah, that doesn't mean you're going to win a lot of games. I mean, just see the Columbus Crew as a great example of being a great first-half team, or maybe being a great first 75 minutes team and then just completely falter in the last 15 minutes. And it's no wonder why they didn't make it to the playoffs. Whereas for LAFC, you know, while they at times they don't play relatively well to begin with, you know, it's kind of like the way that they play is kind of like a steam engine. Like it basically chuckle in the beginning, but then it just goes faster and faster and faster as the time goes, and that's what was the case. I mean, this team was firing on all cylinders by the time the second half comes, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of these depth guys and a lot of these substitute coming off the bench and scoring the goals for this team. And at one point, this team was leading the league in terms of the most goals that was scored by a substitute. That just shows you that, you know, what this LAFC team, at least in the beginning, wasn't just because they were good because the fact that they have a very talented squad, but they also have so much depth and guys that can come off the bench and score some crucial goals. And when you have that, I mean, it's no wonder why they had some MLS Cup aspiration and they lead the Supporters Shield standings from the beginning of the season. And then, of course, the other thing that led to them winning an MLS Cup, the weight is definitely off Carlos Vela's shoulders. And again, you know, I know Carlos Vela will still be a heart and soul for this team, and we know with him suffering some injury setback for the past couple of seasons, it definitely affected this LAFC team. But when you look at this season, I don't think Carlos Vela was really the main man. Yes, I know he led the team in assists, and he also was second in the goal scoring department, but there are guys that are able to step up in him. And that kind of also so perfectly transitioned to the fourth point, and that, of course, is Chicho Arango. I mean, Chicho Arango, again, I think he continued to be one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated, number 9 in the league. The fact that this guy is not getting appreciation of basically scoring goal every single game is kind of surprising. I mean, it's just as surprising, the fact that LAFC keep thinking that they want to move on from him, even though on paper, when you look at the stats and look what he has done, he's literally one of the best number 9 in this league, if not the best number 9 in this league right now. So yeah, I mean, he really kind of get that monkey off the back, at least in Vela's shoulder. And the same goes with Jose Cifuentes and all these other depth pieces that I've talked about, where they really have stepped up and just really allow Carlos Vela to kind of have that pressure of just not have to carry the team. And I think that maybe is the reason why, you know, I know Vela, he had a decent season, but he definitely did not have a season like what we see in 2019. Like, I don't think we'll ever see that 2019 Carlos Vela version again, that version that looked like he was like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo in combined of playing in MLS. But he's certainly a guy that, you know, definitely the pressure is off him as perhaps the only guy to really carry this attack. And then, of course, the last thing that led them to win MLS Cup, they finally defeated the narrative of can't win in big games. And to be fair, coming into the playoffs, that narrative was still strong. I mean, when you look at some of the regular season games that LAFC have played, they still struggle in terms of beating good teams and getting that signature win. But in the playoffs, it was a whole different story. They finally were able to get over the hump, and that we've started to see now in the past couple of years, where, you know, as much as we have seen some narrative that has come and go in MLS, doesn't mean that it's gonna always stay forever. I mean, there's some narrative that it's gonna stay forever, like the Red Bulls always choking in the playoffs. That unfortunately is a narrative that still exists. I mean, sorry, Red Bulls fan, if you're watching this, you knew that was of course coming. But, you know, we also have seen some narrative like last year NYCFC. Their narrative of always choking in the playoffs finally come to an end when they were able to get over the hump and win MLS Cup. And this is the same case again for LAFC, finally overcoming that narrative that they can't win big games when it really matters. But now they were able to do so, and now they, of course, are able to reach the mountain of MLS by winning this MLS Cup. Now, in terms of MVP and revelation, and I'll tell you what, there was a lot of players I could have chose in terms of being the MVP and revelation. But in the end, I got to go with Jose Cifuentes. I mean, I could have easily gone with Carlos Vela. That would have been the obvious choice. But I'm going to go with Jose Cifuentes. And again, you know, like what I said, I think he's the best deep line playmaker in the league. And there's no doubt that I think he is going to receive a ton of offer. And I think the reason why LAFC haven't exactly sold him off is that LAFC have always been a club that they're not like some other club that are willing to just pull the trigger straight away, or just kind of sell it in the first bidder in terms of some of their biggest asset in the team. No, this is a team that are willing to kind of listen to offer, but they don't actually sell player unless they decided that, yeah, that of course is the right offer, and we're gonna definitely pull the trigger in terms of accepting that offer. And that of course can work both ways. I mean, it could work in a good way with the way that transfer fee can continue to rise if you keep a player, but then it can also work against it if a player does suffer an injury or have a bit of a setback. I don't think that's the case for Jose Cifuentes. I mean, I think we could see, if he is going to be sold off to maybe a Premier League team, I think we're going to have a record amount once again in MLS, especially the way that, you know, most of the outgoing transfer we've seen in MLS to European leagues, especially from Premier League, those are the record-breaking transfer fee. I mean, heck, we just saw John Durant went to Aston Villa for about $18 million. So who can say that Jose Cifuentes, if he decided to join a Premier League team, he could be joining a team for like 30 or 40 million. That's how good he is in this league, and how good he is in terms of even during the time when in the World Cup with Ecuador. He was definitely a force in the midfield, and I think LAFC is going to get a boatload of money when they eventually sell him off. Disappointment? I don't know why I even bothered putting it. I mean, there's really nobody that I can say that this team really disappoint this season. But moving forward for this LAFC teams and what the future is going to be, they're going for CCL. So I know that, you know, while winning MLS Cup is nice and that they finally were able to do something that they've been dying to achieve for the past couple of years, but they know deep in their heart that their next step is got to be conquering the CONCACAF mountain, just like what we saw the Seattle Sounder did last year, and they have a legitimate chance to do so, because when you look at this group of CCL, yes, there are definitely some good team in this group, but I think LAFC is definitely going to be considered one of the favorites, especially what they did in 2020 when they made all the way to the finals, and they were literally 30 minutes away from winning CCL, or I should say 10 minutes away from winning CCL, because by the time when Tigres got that equalizer, it was like something around the 78th minute or stuff. But yeah, I mean, they were close in terms of becoming the first team to win the CONCACAF Champions League, and you know deep in their mind that is going to be something that they're going to be solely focused. They want to win that CONCACAF Champions League, and I also think that maybe is the reason why they haven't really sell some of their big asset, because they want to keep these players, and then they probably sell them off in the summer transfer window so they can get more money out of that, but also can make one last big CCL run, because, you know, I believe this year, this is the final year where we're going to have the CCL be like what we have seen in the past couple of years, where the finals is going to be taking place somewhere before the main summer transfer window open up and the secondary transfer window opens up in MLS. The Carlos Vela speculation of leaving could continue as the season goes along. So, you know, last year there was definitely a lot of speculation of whether or not if Carlos Vela was going to be finishing as an LAFC player, especially the speculation of his contract actually ending in the middle of the season, which I don't think a lot of people realize that is the case. Well, I feel like it's going to be the case once again for this season, because after him signing this contract, that means that he'll play until the end of 2023. There's that going to be some speculation that maybe this could be his last season for LAFC. And if that is the case, I mean, will LAFC be okay with that? I mean, when you look at the talent that they have, I mean, as I said, I don't think Carlos Vela means as much more important to this team as we've seen. I mean, there's no doubt he's still important to this team, but he's not a guy that I think LAFC would just completely decline if they lose him a couple of years ago compared to where they are right now. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see as the contract is running down, and especially near the end of the season, depending on where LAFC is. There could be that speculation that Vela could be leaving this team, and I think he would be, I remember maybe the last member of this team that has been on that 2018 team that has been there ever since, because I don't remember any player on this team that was part of that expansion team back in 2018 that was there. I mean, Latif Blessing was one player that comes up in my mind, but then he got traded to the New England Revolution. So yeah, I think Vela might be the last player on this team that's been there since day number one when LAFC entered the league. And then the Chicho Arango speculation of leaving will also continue. And again, it's crazy the fact that LAFC is thinking of selling Chicho Arango either to other team in MLS or potentially, from what I heard recently, they've been having a speculation that they were going to sell him to a club in the Middle East, and that, yeah, I mean, it's quite mind-boggling the fact that why would you decide to sell one of your best number 9 to another team? And Chicho Arango repeatedly said that he's happy with LAFC, so this kind of doesn't even make even more sense, the fact that they decided to sell him. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be that speculation continue, and if it is the case, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some MLS team that is going to be pursuing them. But at the same time, if they are going to be pursuing Chicho Arango, oh boy, it's going to be a massive transfer fee, or a massive general allocation money that we have never seen before that could happen. And in some way, I think it might be too massive, to a way where no team is going to do it, because we have seen before where when teams trying to trade some of their most key piece player to another team, they just can't do it because the other team are not willing to pay like something like 4 or 5 million general allocation money just on a single guy, even if he is a guy that could be a difference maker. So in the case of Chicho Arango, you know, him going to MLS or going to another MLS team, I don't think that's going to be the case. But if he decided to go to Europe or somewhere else, there could be a case that could be the situation. And again, he's another along with a lot of players on this team that have some interest over Europe. And speaking of which, that brings up to the next point where, again, there will be bids for some of these young talented players like Cifuentes and Palacio. You know, there's a lot of European teams that are keeping an eye on LAFC and are looking to try to get those kind of player, and we'll see throughout the season and even heading into the secondary transfer window and the main summer transfer window in Europe, whether or not if those player is going to be snatched up. And then lastly, just like NYCFC, I feel like this team does have the potential to repeat as MLS Cup, but that is if they don't go far in CCL. So as much as I said before that this team is very talented and very stacked, you know, as much as I'll say that, I still think that if they are going to go deep into CCL, and especially if they do win CCL this season, I don't know if they're going to go deep in MLS Cup. And in fact, I think it would be a bit of a miracle and will be something similar to what we saw the Union a couple of years ago, where they also made a deep CCL run and somehow still were able to make a deep playoff run. Like, I feel like that's a huge outlier. Consider it's been proven time and time again, when you make a deep CCL run, you're not going to do well in the season, and you might even miss out on the playoffs entirely. Why? Well, because early days in CCL, you're gonna see a lot of teams that's gonna punt games away, and we know that CCL is a very grueling kind of competition. It can take a lot of mental toughness to get this competition to a point where you could even have one of your star player that can go out on a season-ending injury, just like what we saw last year with the Seattle Sounders losing João Paulo in that final, and that really hurt them throughout the season. And also, not to mention, they were absolutely fatigued. And I feel like that's kind of the same case for LAFC, and especially with the way that we have League Cups this year, and that you add more games into that factor, and that, again, it is just least and least likely the fact that you know, you can have an MLS team even as stacked as LAFC, they could compete in all those competition and still do very well. I mean, the way that the roster rule works here in MLS is really against them, which is why for a long time, including myself, I feel like they need to eventually expand the roster, because of the fact that we're adding more and more games now into these teams that they have to play. Like, there's some teams that they have to play like 50 or 60 games in a season, and with just a 30-man roster or a 24-man roster, if you don't count the supplementary roster spot, that simply is just not enough for a team to stay at the highest level for that long of a period. So yeah, that's going to be something that I think is going to be interesting to see. Again, you know, if they do go far in CCL, I don't know if they're going to go far again in MLS, or even make the playoffs heading into next season. But again, if you're LAFC, I don't think that really matters, because hey, you won the MLS Cup. You want to do the next best thing, which is win something that you have never done it before, and that of course is CCL. And knowing the fact that they came so close back in 2022, or not 2022, I'm sorry, but 2020, that they did against Tigres in the final, you know, they want to do that and want to get back into that stage where they can make it all the way into the final, but this time they make amends and actually winning the trophy itself. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And if you're an LAFC fan, what do you think are the key things that led this team to reach the holy grail of MLS, which is winning MLS Cup? Who's your MVP revelation, disappointment? And moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.